We put them in different neighborhoods, the same neighborhood. Unless we gonna put some more, put more than what we've been putting.
I call to order the Ascension Parish Council meeting, March the 3rd, 2022, the Ascension Parish Courthouse in Donaldsonville. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to ask Coach to lead us in the invocation and pledge. All rise, please.
Let's bow our heads, please. Most Heavenly Father, as we come at this hour in the evening, come with praise, come with honor, and Lord, most of all, we come to say thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon each of us. We pray, Lord, that you bless this meeting, have it to be what you want it to be, Lord. We pray a blessing upon each and every person under the sound of my voice. We pray, Lord, that you will guide, lead, and direct us in a mighty way. I pray, Lord, for the family of my pastor, Melvin Williams Sr., in his passing. Bless the family, Lord. We ask, Lord, that you direct, help, lead, and guide us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that. I have no chair's additions tonight. The public comment sign-in period. Anyone has a comment or want to make a statement about an item on the agenda, please get a red card or a green card from the secretary, fill it out and get it back to her, and we'll acknowledge you when that agenda item comes up. Next, item 5, Parish President's Report. President Quintmore.
Thank you, Chairman, Council, good evening. So we're going to keep it real short and sweet. Really, we just have an announcement to make. For the revision of the ULDC and some of the upcoming changes, wanted to make sure we included the public. So we're going to have 3 outreach public meetings for the public to attend to learn a little bit more about the upcoming changes and get their input. We will have at Oak Grove Community Center, March 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. March 15th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Ascension Parish Administration Building Conference Center, and Ascension Parish Courthouse, Donaldsonville, from March 16th, 6 to 8 p.m. So we encourage the public to come out and give us their input and look at some of the current changes we're looking on, taking a look at to make some changes to our ULDC. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving right along.
Mr.
I'd like to ask. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach.
Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
can I speak?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Patty, the process in, this is a council meeting, right?
Yes.
So if I don't have, I'm wanting to follow the rules and make sure I'm in line, because I've been cut off twice from speaking, and I don't want to be cut off again. What's the process in myself for explaining myself or speaking to this council?
I think as long as it's speaking about an item that's on the agenda, I think you can speak and discuss it as much as you want.
As long as I want?
Yeah.
So that's the rules, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of someone from the audience speaking directly to the chairman, telling them that I don't have it on the agenda to move on. What's the?
If someone's a point of order, and if you're speaking about it in
Point of order from the council?
yes.
A member of the council could make a point of order.
Correct.
President could make a point of order?
No.
Okay. My next question is, I'm wanting to know, moving forward, this 2022, and moving forward and I'm directly talking to Mr. Quintmore in answering our questions that we're asking about projects and different things in our district that you can respond to. Or are we going to go the last 2 years without you saying anything? No communication, no transparency to this council, to the full council, because I know you talked to a few of the council members, but to this full council, moving forward, are we going to get any communication?
Coach, if you'd allow me, I think we established a procedure that if anyone requested information or had questions of the administration, they would put them in an email or put them in writing of some kind, present them to the administration, and I think they have a time period, I think it's 3 days, to get an answer or response. And if they don't, they have to give you a reason why they can't get that answer or get your information to you within 3 days, and that's the process. And that's what we ask you to do. We all have to do it. Everyone up here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Moving forward.
Moving along, consent agenda. Would the secretary please read the consent agenda?
Adoption of February 3rd, 2022 regular council meeting minutes. Adoption of February 17th, 2022 regular council meeting minutes. Approval of variance as per section 18.117.2 regarding community sewer systems for Windermere Crossing subdivision. Utilities Committee recommendation. Approval of variance as per section 18.117.2 regarding community sewer systems for Windsor Park subdivision. Utilities Committee recommendation.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. With that being said, if anyone has an item they want to pull from the consent agenda and move into general business, now's the time to do that.
So move on the consent agenda. Second.
Got a move by Councilman Lambert, second by Councilman Malonson to approve the consent agenda. Any opposition? Any further discussion? There being none, that motion passes. Item 7, general business. Presentation and approval of property and casualty insurance rates for Ascension Parish. Mr. Brett Hughes of Hughes Insurance. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. Good to be here. Like the rest of you, had to fight some traffic, but part of it right now. Appreciate your time and putting it on the agenda tonight. I think all of you should have a copy of, in your packet, some information that we had sent last week that I think Cinnamon had sent you, which was a spreadsheet. And then also today, she sent some additional information that we had sent just to give you some more details of kind of where we are and kind of how we got here from a property standpoint. We spent a lot of time tonight kind of talking about the property insurance and the state of, I guess, Louisiana and how that looks right now. And then we'll get into some of the coverages. You know, a few weeks back when I came and met with you, and first off too, if you do not have an electronic copy, we do have some paper copies that we can give you as well if you need one. Just let me or Cinnamon know, we can get that to you. When I came a few weeks ago and told you that, yeah, we're going to be able to find coverage this year, but it's going to cost us more money, that happened. We, you know, insurance right now in South Louisiana with the historic hurricanes that we've had the last 2 years, 3 hurricanes altogether with Laura, Delta, and Ida. Ida is the 5th most expensive in the history of the country now from an insurance loss standpoint. The picture's dire at times in South Louisiana when it comes to property. So we knew that going in. We got wind of that in probably in early December of what it was going to kind of look like. And so we did something this year that we probably hadn't had to do in years past, and even with your previous agent probably hadn't had to do it for a long time, maybe since Katrina. But we had the insurance companies go in and model and to come up with, we had a good idea of kind of what we thought we would need from a coverage standpoint as far as the amount of coverage, but we wanted more than just our thoughts on that. We wanted some data to back that up. So we got the insurance companies this year to go in and model to come up with kind of worst case scenario. I'll get to that in a second. That's part of the packet you have there, just to kind of show, okay, the amount of coverage we think we need is this, and this will kind of help us to understand why we need that. And so we were able to get them, not only insurance companies, but we also got the broker that we use, which is US Risk, out of Texas. We got them to go in and do a model as well, because we wanted to be able to compare what the insurance companies were saying with what our broker was saying that we needed. And fortunately, those two models matched up almost identical as far as the amount of coverage. Just to give you an idea of kind of how difficult the renewal was this year, AmRisk, which is a company that for the last several years, including the last 2 years that we've been your agent, they came in and they wrote and covered all of the property coverage that we needed, which was over $150 million that we had at the time. They came in this year and said, we're only going to do $10 million. And their $10 million was going to cost more than what they were charging for the $153 million last year. So we knew in December, okay, we're going to layer this differently. And once AmRisk gave us that information, we basically took them out of the layering process completely and said, we're going to go and do what we looked at last year, but we didn't need to do it last year because AmRisk was still a big player. Well, this year, that just wasn't the case. And so when we get to the spreadsheet, and if you would turn to that real quick, the layering process that we went through this year, we have 11 companies that are writing the $50 million in coverage. And I'm not going to go through the entire layer. I just want you to, because it does get a little confusing at times. It took me a while. I guess I've been in this business 29 years, and I guess I started to understand layering about 15 years ago. If you look at the first 3 lines there, middle of the page where it says layer, and you have to the left National Fire and Marine Insurance Company, and you have 2 companies listed right below that, those 3 companies are insuring the first $10 million. And that's the main part that we want to look at first, is that first $10 million. Give you an idea, this year hurricane losses with Ida, we're fortunate, was right at less than $300,000. So it wasn't a bad event for us particularly, but it was really bad for a lot of parts of the state. The first $10 million is written between those 3 companies. The first company, which is National Fire and Marine, that's a Berkshire company. They're taking the first $5 million of the 10. The next 2 are taking 2.5 each. So the first 10 is split up between 3 companies. If you look to the right, it tells you what those companies are charging for that amount of coverage. So Berkshire is charging the $337,500 for their $5 million and on down. If you keep going down the layering process, you'll see where it's got $5 million over the $15 million, excess of 10. Basically what that means is that company has taken 5 of the next 15 over the additional 10 million. And so we have a total of $50 million in property coverage, and we have it layered between 11 different companies. If you look to the right on the premium, you'll see that the premiums drastically go down. And that's because obviously their risk is much lower when they're at the bottom of the layer, because we have to have a significant loss in order for them to pay anything. So we're going to be able to get that last 10 million of coverage over the initial 40 million for $50,000. With the fees and taxes that the companies charge, $52,949. So we're getting the last 10 for $300,000 less than we're getting the first 10. Any questions on the layering? I just want you to have a pretty good idea. Yes, sir, Mr. Joel.
So how do you decide who pays out first on the $5 million?
Good question.
Payouts on $15 million.
On the first $10 million loss,
They're all, well, no, the 3
pay a percentage. So let's say if we have $1 million, that $1 million is split between those 3 carriers,
Okay.
with National Fire picking up half, the other 2 picking
So
up
they
25%.
split it, right?
And those percentages go down through the layering process. Any other questions on that? Turn to the page, if you would, that has Ascension Parish government at the top. We'll come back to the spreadsheet, but that's the first part of the spreadsheet on the property. And I want you to see where it says modeling for property insurance. All of you have that in front of you? That is what we got the insurance companies to do when I mentioned it earlier. If you look at the first line, or the first column on the left where it says event, the 10,000 and 5,000 year event, fortunately, that's never happened. But we wanted to model it to see what's the worst case scenario if we have a 10,000 year event. So if you look over to the right where it's got occurrence exceeding probability, that's the OEP, that basically says what's the probability of our loss dollar amount if we have a 10,000 year event. And it came in right at 50 million, a little over $50 million. So that backed up the idea of, okay, 50 million we think is going to be a really good number. But then let's go look at the 5,000 year event, and it stayed at right at 50 million. Insurance companies, if you look at the bullet points toward the bottom, the first or second bullet point, it talks about There's not an insurance company out there that I'm aware of that's going to underwrite an account over a 10 or 5,000 year event. They're always going to look at least a 1,000-year event. So if you look at the 1,000-year event and we're at a loss coverage amount of $30,560.92, that is modeling saying, hey, if we have a 1,000-year event, our loss probability is going to be right over $30 million. So the $50 million that we have currently, effective March 1st, is $20 million more than what our 1,000-year event is. So that's just kind of the, I guess, the method to the madness of how we came up with how much coverage do we need. And then if you look at the very last bullet point, what we also did was the two most expensive buildings we have insured is the new administration building and the new courthouse. Those are right at just a tad under $50 million total. So we wanted to be able to say, okay, God forbid a tornado comes in, wipes out both of those buildings, what are we looking at? Well, that could be considered a 10,000-year event based off the $50 million that they're telling us we need for that. So we've got enough coverage from a total insured value to cover those two buildings if both of them get totally destroyed by a tornado. Not likely from a hurricane, to be honest, totally, but a tornado could. So we at least have that covered. Keeping in mind, the $50 million is an occurrence limit. So every time we have a claim, it's not like we use the first $50 million in one claim and we've got to purchase more coverage after that. It's $50 million for the occurrence, however many occurrences we have throughout the year. Any questions on that? I just wanted you to have an idea of the modeling and how we did it and why it was important this year, knowing that we were literally told by every market we went to, you cannot get $153 million in coverage this year for Ascension Parish. It is not possible. You need to figure out, Brett, what's your worst case scenario and insure that. We're not like anybody else, I can tell you right now in the state, though. Other parishes, U.S. Risk is one of the largest property brokers in the state, in the country. They write a lot of municipalities, including here in Louisiana. They're going through the same thing. Insurance carriers are telling them you need to look at a third of what you probably had insured previously, and that's probably what you can afford. Not only could we not afford to get $153 million this year, there's not an insurance company out there that was even willing to do it. Now, we did get an additional $20 million over the 50, and they said that they would sell it for $25,000. I just don't think we need it, and the models show it. The $50 million should be sufficient if we look at it, a 50-year event, and more than likely it's going to be worst case a 30-year. So that's the reason that I don't think we need to go in and spend an additional $25,000 when property rates are already up this year to get an extra $20 million to get us to 70, because we have the 50 and I think it's sufficient. Any questions on that before we move on to the next item as far as the modeling and how we came up with that? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Terry.
No question about the modeling. It's quite interesting. Thank you very much. My question is, how much damage was there to property, and you may not know the answer to this, the administration may have to get it for us, in 2016 to our governmental buildings, vehicles, all those things that were covered by
Before, and it would be more of an administration because we weren't the agent then, but I will tell you, keep in mind though, that was a flood event, not a wind event.
But that's our most likely
It
scenario.
is, and we've got the same amount of flood coverage at $5 million that we had, but that doesn't affect the current marketing or marketing analysis in the rates, because similar to Katrina, the current market that we're in right now, it's the worst I've seen since Katrina from a property standpoint. But it took the insurance companies only about 6 months to a year after Katrina to realize Katrina was mainly a flood event for Louisiana.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of wind damage. That's not the case with these last 3 storms we've had.
Right.
And so that's what's really driving. But and I know I have some information at the office because we looked at some losses on that, but I don't remember the exact amount of what the flood losses were in 16.
And is that covered under an entirely separate, like it is for a typical homeowner?
It's covered with the same U.S. Risk broker that we use. In the policy that we have, we've got the flood built in. It's different than what you're thinking about of your home.
Right.
Because it's through the National Flood Insurance Program. We actually have 2 or 3 buildings in the parish that do have a separate flood policy through the NFIP, and that's because those buildings were damaged and they were uninsured at the time. We received some money in 2016 from the federal government to fix them, and they require you to go in and cover them separately through NFIP. So we have those buildings, but what we have with the current property is an additional $5 million of flood over and above those other 2 or 3 coverages that we have. And that $5 million limit has been there for several years, and it's the same with this year. Fortunately, they did not come in and lower that amount as far as the amount of coverage we could get on flood this year.
I'd appreciate knowing what our,
Yeah, and if not,
damage
I can definitely find out. I can easily get that for you. That's not a problem.
thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Travis.
It's not so much a question, as more, I think the council needs to understand how the LAM, the insurance, does eventually work. That, your second level insurance or your third level insurance may not want to voluntarily pay if they feel that first level of insurance paid a claim that wasn't valid. And then you end up with a whole bunch of insurance companies arguing and fussing about who owes what, who owes this, and that the parish may be on the hook to hire attorneys to try to make these insurance companies actually pay these claims. It's just not as simple as you have the first layer and the second level automatically kicks in. That, just for example, Lexington may feel that National Fire and Marine Insurance Company didn't fully evaluate the claim or shouldn't have paid out their full policy, and then they may not be willing to pay their policy at that point. I just think that needs to be explained to the council. I've been in cases before where the initial claim has been paid, but the remaining layers of insurance, or as we call them, the tower of insurance, argues back and forth, and we've been in litigation for almost 10 years as far as who's going to pay what, who owes what, and who needs to reimburse who. Yeah,
and no, it's a good point, and it can happen. Fortunately, I will tell you, with municipality accounts especially, it's rare for it to happen. So in a case like that, we've seen it before. Keeping in mind, even prior to this, AmRisk was writing all of the coverage, but they still had it layered with a bunch of insurance companies. There's not a single insurance company out there in South Louisiana that's going to come in and say, we'll write the entire 50 million, 150, whatever it might be. So the layering process, you're completely right. It can cause some issues if and when you have a claim with an underlying carrier, the first 10 million, or in this case, the first 5 million says, no, that we shouldn't be paying that. But I will tell you, in the 29 years now, it's very rare that you see it, especially with municipality accounts. But it can happen. There's no doubt about it. And insurance companies fight over some crazy things all the time that we sit back and say, this is clear cut. Why are we not paying this? But yeah, Mr. Lawler would know that as well. He's been a counsel for insurance companies for sure.
Any other questions? Brad, I just got one quick. You said no one will write 153 million, which is what would be our best case scenario to cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, the reduction in coverage is worth the risk because we would have to lose every parish building in one event to have a claim.
Yeah, we have we're fortunate where we have a pretty good spread of risk. The biggest two examples of what I would say is the two newer buildings. They're right next door. Most of the other buildings valued at some significant dollars, they're spread out. So it's got to be a hurricane or tornado that stays on the ground for 3 miles wide and covers a large chunk of the parish or whatever for us to really have. That's the reason, Councilman Cagnolati, that the modeling was so important this year. Because we knew that we had to at least cover those two buildings in a worst case scenario, and we knew 50 million would do that. But I didn't want to just use that information. We wanted to say, okay, we've got concrete data that shows in a 1,000 event, we should not have more than a $31 million loss. And we've got 19 million more than that. Now, keep in mind, in years past, I hate to use the word cheap with insurance, but the way AmRisk was doing it, it was pretty cheap. And so you take it, you ride that wave as long as you can, kind of like when you and I and Pat had met in my office to review some of this a few weeks back, and I told you, hey, look, if AmRisk was willing to do what they did last year, we would stay with them again. It's just not there any longer. So at that point, we had to go in and find out, okay, what's the best case scenario we can get? To give you an idea, talking about that, I did include in your packet a marketing summary. So if you look at that, you'll see the 41 companies that we went to get the property insurance. 11 of those are the ones that we chose in order to participate in the $50 million layer. So that just gives you an idea of who we went to. One other thing I want to point out that's in your packet there, we didn't make any changes this year to other lines of coverages like we did on the property, except in 2 instances. We went in and on the, you see where it says we switched from BH, that's not Brett Hughes, that's Berkshire Hathaway, and I realized that after I did it, I put initials because I'm used to doing it in my office, and You were going to probably look at that and say, what's he talking about? But we switched from Berkshire Hathaway to Markel on your inland marine and your equipment policy. You'll see some of the notable differences there and the kind of the reasons why we did it. One is Markel is an admitted carrier. Doesn't mean that Berkshire was not or is a bad company. It just means that they don't charge fee and taxes. And so we saved over $5,000 a year in fee and taxes by moving it to Markel. And then you'll see where we also got a $10 million policy limit versus a $5 million. And then we've got a $5 million flood limit versus 2.5, which is what they were offering, not on the property, but on inland marine equipment. And then the deductible stayed this flat for flood, $100,000. Previously, it was at 3% with a minimum of $100,000. So we were able to get better terms, better coverage, much more coverage on the inland marine for less money. So we made that switch. And then one below that is the equipment breakdown, boiler machinery. We moved that away from CNA and we put that with Travelers this year. Travelers also writes our crime coverage. And so anytime we can kind of have more than one line of coverage with a particular insurance company, it's better sometimes, especially in losses and claims and when it comes time for renewals. And so we moved it this year. Now, I will tell you, it's $3,000 more, but you look at the amount of coverage and we went from 50 million to 100 million. So from 15,000 to 19,000, we were able to get $50 million more in coverage on the equipment breakdown and boiler and machinery policy. So to me, that was kind of a no-brainer. Go back to the spreadsheet if you would, and we'll end with this, and I'll turn it and have, like I said, answer any other questions that you have. That spreadsheet, and it's just for kind of information purposes for you, but that spreadsheet includes all of the coverages with a 3/1 effective date. So you've got the property at the top, and then when you go to the next section right below where it says total property excluding BM and TRIA, we went with the Travelers like we just mentioned, and then on your terrorism, because we have a separate terrorism policy, we exclude terrorism on every policy because we include it on a separate policy. And you've been doing it that way for years, and it makes sense, and I don't see any reason to change that. And then all the other lines listed below that. And if you look where you see the red asterisk underneath Markel American, that's where we moved. We had two options, a $100,000 deductible for flood and a $250,000, and we went with the $100,000 because it was costing about $17,000 more, but it's obviously $150,000 less on deductible if we should happen. And Ms. Terry, you touched on it. Flood is going to damage more equipment in our area than anything else. So the lower deductible we can get, the better with that. And then the last asterisk that I'll point out to you, toward the bottom, you see where it says Travelers Casualty and Surety Company of America. That's the crime policy. Right above that is the expiring policy with the $100,000 limit. We were able to get Travelers to go in and give us $1 million limit for an extra $6,000 total for 3 years. Because if you go all the way to the right of that spreadsheet, you'll see where it has 3-year term, because that's a 3-year policy. So it's costing us $5,008 a year to get $1 million compared to $3,216 a year to get the $100,000. The totals of total combined premium take into account just those asterisks. It doesn't include the premium for the other options that we didn't go with. I just wanted you to see them. Any questions on any of that? About 50% of our increase this year came from property insurance. Another 14% came from auto insurance, and that was about the total premium increase this year was from those two lines of coverage. You're not in any other position in any other council or administration or municipality or commercial client or personal home, anybody else is in it right now in Louisiana. Property rates are going up.
Councilman Cason.
Yes, ma'am.
So just 2 or 3 observations. First, those little red things did not look like anything but a speck on the paper to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
We
what is he
wanted to fit it
talking
all on one page, and then when we did that, it definitely made it a little smaller. But there's 2 on there.
I eventually found them.
Okay, well, I'm
Thank you
glad.
very much.
Yeah.
So next time, please, put them a
You,
little bit
that's the
bigger.
same thing that a few of the ladies in my office told me.
I'm sure.
Could
All
make that
of
a little
them
bigger.
over
I said,
40.
yeah, but I wanted it on one page.
Secondly, tell me what crime limit, what crime encompasses, if you'll, just for the benefit of the public.
It's, things like, could be some theft, internal type theft of dollars or whatever it might be. It could be where if we've got someone going to the bank to make deposits, whatever it might be, even though a lot of that might be done electronically and they happen to get robbed or whatever, and we've had some claims over the last 29 years to pay something like that. But so it's got to be it's not just a, how should I word it? It's not we think this person did this. It is a crime has been committed. This is what it was. It's usually a theft situation, and that's going to come in and pay for that.
Okay,
To
that
pay,
makes
to reimburse.
sense.
If you
And
don't
then-
have that, you don't have coverage for it.
One other observation that I'm going to give Bill Dawson credit for this from years ago. March the 1st, this all renewed. We are approving this on March the 3rd. So will we be able next year, could you commit that this will be done before so that
Yes.
we can approve it at the appropriate time?
When Councilman Cagnolati and I and Pat met, the plan back in December, until we really realized how bad the property market was to have this beginning of February. That's been the plan all along. That literally got thrown out the window early
Sure.
when we realized, okay, and it's just like I told you a couple of weeks ago, I was prepared that night to come and give you an idea of what things were going to be, but we didn't have any concrete at that point. And I didn't have any hard numbers where I could say, hey, this is what it's going to look like. So until we had that, and believe me, we strong-armed our underwriters as much as we could in order to get this. Unfortunately, there's a lot of property in Louisiana that renews January through April. And so all of these companies were getting hit with that. And then what also happened, and I'm getting into kind of details of insurance, but a lot of reinsurance treaties at these insurance companies, they purchase their own insurance. If you have $1 million home and Chubb writes it, they might only pay for 35% of that loss. Their insurance company or their reinsurance company is covering the rest of that. Most reinsurance treaties renew March or April. So there's a lot of clients or companies out there that are trying to do a midterm change, if you will, and say, hey, my insurance doesn't renew till August, but I want to cancel and rewrite it now because they know when the reinsurance treaties renew March and April, and property rates are going to be worse. And so that slowed the process down. You had a lot of, like if y'all were renewing August 1st, we would have been looking at that more than likely. I would have came to y'all and said, hey, we need to look at moving this to an off anniversary date renewal. Because if we wait till August 1st this year, with what I'm seeing right now, it's going to be really, really bad. Because these insurance companies, once their reinsurance treaties hit March 1st and April 1st, rates are going up even more. So that happened as well. So there was a whole lot of things that went on that was kind of out of our control. But yeah, the plan all along was to do it in February. That's the plan next year. We always want to be able to come to your finance committee in February to say, hey, here's what's going on. You know, here's and keep in mind as well, and we talked a little bit about this before, it's not like you're improving a contract between one engineering firm or the other. It's a coverage issue. Well, we can't let you go without coverage March 1st. So you're really approving the expenditure of it at that point. If we got into some debate on, hey, I think we should go with a $250,000 deductible for flood instead of the $100,000, then yeah, that would be something that we would. That's the reason that when I met with John and Pat, we reviewed some of that so they could have a good idea of, hey, here's some of our recommendations, guys. But it's always, yeah, we want to try to get it to you 3 weeks or so prior to that renewal date at your February meeting. And I will do everything I can, I assure you, to make sure that happens next year. And I've already been fussed at by administration as well, so I understand.
Maybe start a month early.
Well,
knows you're wrong.
yeah, we started November 1st.
Mr. Hughes, thanks for the
Yes, sir.
for the effort. Being on the other side of that train, I can tell you that these insurance companies have been difficult over these last 6 months.
No doubt, over the last year.
Well, the last 6 months since Ida hit.
Yep.
It's been extremely difficult. And the comments I'm about to make are not towards you or your agency, but I have a concern with the administration. Back in 2020, a last-second proposal was made to us to switch our insurance to Hughes Insurance. And it was either do this or we don't have insurance March 1st. And we did it. Last year, similar situation. Let's wait until the last second, bring them forward, and get us to sign a contract and say, let's go forward with it. This year, we're having the same thing. Now we're entering into a contract with you 3 days after the policies, our previous policies ran out. There's a concern here, and it seems like there's a trend that continues to take place. I believe that this committee, and not tonight, but in the next couple of months, needs to set up a resolution that this has to be done in January, giving this the Finance Committee and then the full council the opportunity to vet these policies and vet this operation. This idea of waiting until the last second so there's no option other than to do what Mr. Quintmore tells us to do is for the birds. And again, it's not against you, Brett.
Look, believe me, I get it.
It's a scenario that we have, and we've been dealing with it for 3 years, or 2 years, 3 times with your guys. And there's other contracts and other issues that go on here. But it's the same institutional wrong.
Well, and let me address it real quick, if you don't mind firing in, and I think it'll help some from the administration as well. Keep in mind, prior to this year, you didn't have a contract with Hughes Insurance. It was always a handshake. Like I told you from the day one back in, I guess it was February of 2020, might have been March of 2020. Hey, you can hire and fire us anytime you want. So the contract aspect of it, it really doesn't come into play with, you're entering into a contract with the insurance company to get coverages, and that's what I was saying just a while ago. As your agent, I'm not going to let you go without coverage. This was a very difficult year, no doubt about it. To your point, Mr. Cagnolati, we can start and pick a date. It doesn't matter. The insurance companies are not, because you have to keep in mind, we're in the line of when it comes up. I can send them everything I need in September for a March 1 date. There's not a single insurance company out there going to look at that because they're not starting that process on their end until about 90 days out. Why? Because they've got millions of policies renewing during that time. It's important for us, this account. It's important to you guys. It's important to them, but they might have 100,000 of them just like it. And so it really doesn't help that aspect of that. To your point as well, Councilman Corey, you're right. If we start, like when we started in November, the process we thought would be finished in February, it wasn't. I will tell you, that's not on the administration. That's more on us and the insurance companies than anything. They can't control that. We have to go to the company in order to get that done. So I just didn't want you to think that it was them. It wasn't. It was more on us and the insurance companies.
And I'm not saying it's an intentional act. I'm saying it's a negligible act. In the fact that rather than setting a priority and saying we're going to get this done accordingly, we tend to overall wait till the last minute. And what I'm asking is cooperation of this council, the Finance Committee, and the administration, that we get together and we start having an idea and we start, granted, if it's only the low-hanging fruit that we can pick in January, let's get that low-hanging fruit done and let's make it happen. Again, it's sort of like right now, you got us all we're all sitting up here with either we say yes, go for it, or we're telling the parish you don't have insurance. There are no options for us left at this stage.
Well, and I guess
that puts us in a very difficult situation.
Yeah, and if you remember, John, we've mentioned it before, and I think it would be a pretty good idea. I go back to, I guess, how things used to be done and how we're doing them now. From a standpoint of this, in the prior, and I think this is where some of the confusion comes in, you did have a contract that had to be renewed prior to March 1st, and it was the contract as the consultant. That, when you go back and listen and watch, because I've done it for 3 years prior to us becoming your agent, to see exactly what the conversations were, what were you approving. It was the contract of a consultant.
Correct.
Very little discussion took place on coverages, on anything like that. I'm open to that, but it usually can't be in a setting like this, even in February, because that's 30 days prior to the renewal, and there's not a lot of changes that are going to be made at that point. You and I had talked before, John, when we said, hey, we can form an insurance committee if you want. Y'all used to have one years ago. To my knowledge, I don't think you do any longer, but I think it makes sense to have a member of the administration one or two members of the council, maybe two members of the administration, whatever we come up with, where 2 or 3 times a year, I'm sitting down with you and reviewing, here's where we are. And so it would help that process for sure. It's not going to help us secure quotes necessarily prior to whatever date these insurance companies get them to us, but it will help the process of you guys kind of have an idea. That's why I thought it was so important when I met with John and Pat to say, hey, I wasn't comfortable coming tonight for the very first time to tell you, here's what's going on. I've met with them once or twice, spoke to them on the phone, met with you guys a couple of weeks ago, because I wanted to be as transparent as possible. Just didn't have all the information. We were hoping to do it at finance, when Councilman Wagisback wanted to do it. We didn't have the property rates at that point, and that's where all the issues were this year.
And again, Brett, like I told you, I said.
No, I understand. I'm for it.
And I think that's a great idea, and I'd hope that we could consider doing something of that nature and having that sort of committee together. So, again, when you're coming to us, at the last minute with, I had to do this, to make this work, to make sense, we're stuck with, thank you, Brett, we believe everything you say.
I got it, yeah.
It would be nice to have a little advanced knowledge of it. So listen, that's great.
I will commit to you that we will work on that, myself with the administration and with Chairman John to see about the best way to do that going forward.
Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Councilman Lawler.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Thank you, Councilman Wagisback, always looking out for me. Turn my microphone on. Make a motion that we accept the 2022 insurance renewal with the recommended options.
Got a motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Mason. Any objection? Any further discussion? There being none, passes. Thank you, Brett.
Oh, thank y'all.
Appreciate a detailed presentation.
I'm glad to do it. I will be in touch with some of those follow-ups as well. And Ms. Terry, I'll get back to you on the flood claims for 2016.
Thank you, David.
All right, moving right along. 7B, resolution to ratify Human Resources Director Lucy Cason. Patrick Goldsmith, here he comes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I have the pleasure tonight of offering up Lucy Cason for ratification as our new HR director. And if you remember, I already introduced her at the last Finance Committee meeting. I don't want to go into all of her qualifications again. I will say for those who really find this important, she is from Santa Monica. And she has 22 years of HR experience with the military. So what I do want to focus on tonight is what she's done in the 2 short months that she's been with us. To say that she's hit the ground running is an understatement. She's taken a fresh look at all of our policies, and maybe it's the military side, but she's brought an order and a decisiveness to our policies and identified a lot of areas where we could improve. And so her expertise has already been a benefit looking at the policies and helping us clarify lots of things with employee performance, promotions, even creating the new evaluation process. So it's great to have that experience behind to have those best practices brought to light for the parish. She's met with numerous department heads already, really got out into the field, which is great. I'm really happy to see that. She started looking at a process for improving our recruiting and looking at a new recruiting strategy, something that we could really benefit from because, as you know, it is really hard to find people right now. It's hard to find talent, and so trying to be more competitive, she's going to really help us with that. She's been working with SSA on the market study and provided some, I think, invaluable insights to SSA. And from our perspective, even though we have a good contractor, it's nice to have somebody on our staff that can look at their work, evaluate it, and help make it better so that by the time it gets finalized, we know it's the best for the parish. She also renegotiated our HR Solutions contract, one of the first things she did, and saved us money. So she's a fierce negotiator as well, so that was great to see. And this is all in addition to her day-to-day activities. So she has really gone above and beyond. Very, very proud to have her on staff right now, and very proud to recommend her for ratification. And so now, if you'd like, we'll bring her up and let Lucy say a few words. Please.
Good evening. Thank you for me this evening. Patrick told me about an hour ago that he was going to invite me up here to say a few words, and I believe I had a little bit of time on the bridge to do that. So I would like to say that I'm very humbled to be here. I spent my entire time traveling with my husband while he served our country in the Marine Corps, just wanting to come home. And we finally did. And I remember right before we moved to Japan, I was sitting and having a conversation with John's dad. And I remember he told me, "Why do you have to go all the way to Japan to do human resources? We got that right here." And I just sort of laughed at him and with him, excuse me, because I didn't understand at the time what I could really do for my hometown, and I'm very honored to actually have the opportunity to do that. I love and enjoy human resources with a passion that I think sometimes is a little to my detriment. And I really enjoy working with the staff that is just there. I've gone into many human resources offices and inherited staff that is not as talented as the one we have right here. So I'm very excited to do that, and I just ask for the opportunity to do more. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawler.
Yes,
Not a big concern, but we don't have a CV or anything attached to this. Normally, we have the information attached because there are certain requirements that changes the vote. If somebody meets the requirements, it's a simple majority. If they don't meet the requirements, it's a super majority. Since we don't have any of that information.
She meets all the ones. She does. Sorry that's not attached. I know I kind of went through all of those in finance, but we can make sure you get that.
Next time.
And you mentioned the market study. Where do we stand on that?
So SSA is trying to finalize their part. They have been working through, and we had hoped it would be done for this meeting, but SSA is still trying to make sure they get all of the rest of their analysis finished. And again, Lucy's trying to work with them to make sure that it is right and it's the best thing for the parish. So we're close, and we're trying to have that line up with the merit system. It looks like the merit system may beat the market study. So, but we'll figure out how to make it work.
Can we get that merit, the merit study by next meeting? What's that, 2 weeks?
The merit system, you actually have a resolution.
I'm sorry, not the merit system, the market study. I got the two confused.
Well, we'll try to push Christelle to get that done. The market study.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Ms. Cason.
I think Dempsey had it, just a second.
Second, I'm sorry. I'll second.
I had a motion from Councilman Lambert, second by Councilman Malonson.
I think Councilman Waller brought up a good point. How do we know if this has to be a simple majority or a super majority to approve it without having all the paperwork in front of us? Can we do this and should? I mean, it's nothing against Lucy and Patrick, we know the press.
Yeah.
I just, for clerical purposes, shouldn't we have that?
Turn your mic on.
For clerical purposes, shouldn't we have those documents attached so that we make sure that there's no question that what we're doing is proper? Again, I don't know the answer to, I'm asking a question.
I trust Patrick to give us the information that's good, but if someone wants to make a substitute or amended motion to say that we approve it contingent on providing those documents for the next meeting.
And I was going to actually make that motion that we approve it contingent upon being provided those for the next meeting, which may become a moot point if the approval is over a supermajority anyway.
Yeah,
If
if the approval is unanimous, we don't have a problem.
Yeah, and I certainly think she's doing an incredible job. I've already met with her in her office and everybody.
We have I guess you say a substitute motion to approve or ratify this case, and if we get the information provided, and if not, if we have a major majority, then it's a moot point. She gets ratified anyway. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I have a motion.
Second.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe you can do that. John. I think you can't have a motion contingent. I think y'all can, if y'all want to just vote on it, and if y'all get the supermajority, then y'all are fine.
Okay, so we just need a simple majority?
Supermajority.
Supermajority.
We would need a
We
Two-thirds.
need a super majority.
Yes.
Okay,
And then if it doesn't pass by the supermajority, then
okay.
Well, then I'll withdraw my motion, and I'm confident that we can vote on that. There won't be any issues.
Motion to.
I wouldn't want to say this, are y'all confident with that? And the reason I ask is, once somebody's not ratified, they're not ratified, they can't receive a paycheck. I want to make sure y'all are good with it. I don't want to put you all in a bad position.
I'm pretty confident that she'll be ratified.
I am too.
All right, so I got a motion to ratify Ms. Cason, and a second.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Any objections? There being none, she's ratified.
Thank you.
Thank you, congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Okay, next item 8, introduction of ordinances, legal counsel. I want to mention that, gentlemen and Terry, we need a motion to introduce. We do not need a second. And I want everyone to keep in mind that this is an introduction of items A, B, C, and D, and that at the next meeting, we'll bring these up, and there will be a reading of the ordinance. There will be a public hearing open for any discussions by any council member or any member in the audience that signs a card to have open discussions. So we have time to discuss this before there's an actual vote on it, okay? I just wanted to mention that. So, moving along. Madam Secretary, do I read these or Kenneth? We don't read it, okay. Introduction of ordinance A.
Motion to approve. A motion introduced.
Motion introduced by Councilman Lawler. Item B.
Motion.
Motion by
Chairman
Corey
Cagalati,
Rogeron.
you need to read the agenda items, just not the ordinance.
Yeah, just read the
Oh,
whole
I'm sorry. I was going to read the agenda item. Introduction of ordinance. Let's go back to A. Introduction of an ordinance to amend the Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 2, Development Code Section 17-2082B, and Appendix 4, I guess it is, Subdivision Regulations, Sections 17-405, 17-4021, 17-4032, 17-4032B, 17-4037, 17-4039, and 17-4060. Modifications based on recommendation by Kendi Keast and Planning Commission. And a motion introduced by Councilman Lawler. Item B, introduction of an ordinance to decrease disconnect fee from $42 to $20 in ACUD 1 PUA schedule of fees.
Motion.
Motion by Coach to introduce. Item C, introduction of ordinance to amend the Personnel Policy Manual, Chapter 16-1, to add the Performance Evaluation Program. Motion by Councilman Mason to introduce. And item D, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Personnel Policy Manual, Chapter 16-3, to add language, no employee's salary shall be increased by more than 5% beyond the highest level of pay scale for the employee's pay grade.
Motion introduced.
Motion by Councilman Malonzo to introduce. Moving along to item 9, public hearings, ordinances, legal counsel. Mr. DePatie.
To amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parks and Recreation. Purpose to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parks and Recreation. Article 1, Section 15-2, Parks Rules and Regulations, generally to amend F, lease pricing for recreational facilities. Whereas the Charter of the Parish of Ascension, Section 6-01, requires an ordinance for all acts that regulate the rate or other charge for services provided by the parish and for all amendments to those acts. And whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing and responsible body over parks and recreation, and whereas the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Article 1, Section 15-2 was last amended on July 1st, 2021, now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish governing authority that the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parks and Recreations, Article 1, in general, Section 15-2, Parks and Rules and Regulations generally to amend F, lease prices for recreation vehicles, facilities, as more fully described in Exhibit A, attached here to and made a part hereof. Effective date, this ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance having been submitted to a vote thereon was as follows.
Chair will entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Cazo, second by Councilman
Motion to close.
Alonso. Motion to close the public hearing by Councilman
Second.
second by Councilman Alonso.
Motion to move the ordinance.
Motion by Councilman Alonso to move the ordinance, second by Councilwoman Cazo. Any objection? Any further discussion? There being none, it carries. Motion to enter executive session by
Second.
Councilman Mason, second by Councilwoman Cazo. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Robert?
Yes.
Councilman Turner? Councilman Orgeron?
Yes.
Councilman Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Malashaw?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Wagisback?
Yes.
Councilman Mason?
Yes.
Councilwoman Casso?
Yes.
Chairman Cagnolati?
Yes, and this is a HR Solutions Hotline Case Management Update. Chair, got a motion from Councilman Melanson, second by Councilman Mason to reconvene. I'll go ahead and read item B, executive session, discussion of options and authority for legal to take action against DEMCO regarding non-relocation of utilities for the Move Ascension program. I need a motion. Motion from Councilman Robert in an executive session, second by Councilman Melanson. We're in executive session. Roll call. Roll call, I'm sorry, Madam Secretary.
Councilman Thomas. Councilman Robert. Councilman Turner. Councilman Orgeron. Councilman Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
Yes.
Councilman Wagisback.
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
Yes.
Councilwoman Casso.
Yes.
Chairman Cagnalotti.
Yes.
I'll tell you after what I said about you.
What are you doing?
Motion, I need a motion to reconvene. Motion by Councilman. All righty. I need a motion to reconvene.
So, motion to reconvene.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, reconvene, second by Councilwoman Cazo.
I'd like to make a motion, yeah.
Councilman Lawler.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize our legal counsel to take any actions necessary, including legal actions, to have Demco move their utilities so we can move forward with at least 6 projects, transportation projects here in Ascension Parish to improve safety and traffic.
I second that.
Who's that? Got a motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Robert. Any questions? Any objections?
I'd like to offer an amended motion that we consider the option of seeking outside counsel to manage this particular legal action. There are concerns of conflicts of interest with the DA's office and the work that they... There are concerns with conflicts of interest with the DA's office and this council, and I think it's necessary that we go outside of the DA's office and seek private counsel to work on these matters for us. So that's my proposed amended motion.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion, Councilman Lawler.
Yeah, may I understand some of the concerns? I understand some of the concerns with, wanting to maybe consider outside counsel for this, but just because of the time that this may take, and it's very specialized. I don't want to delay this, though. I'd like to see, to allow our council to start working on this, and during that same time period, we can look at getting outside counsel, because that's going to take some time to do that. Would you consider amending your motion to allow us to move forward with continuing negotiations and taking any legal action necessary, and at the same time, we issue, and I guess it'd be an RF, help me with this, guys, PRQ, for outside counsel, citing potential conflicts and time constraints?
I would be willing to withdraw my motion, my amended motion, if you offer your amended motion to allow current legal counsel to take actions up to litigation. Stop it, no litigation will be filed without us first investigating into a private legal firm to take these actions on our behalf. He can negotiate with them, he can go to the Public Service Commission, but at the end of the day, I want us to have private counsel litigate this matter.
I've exhausted negotiations at this point, in my opinion. It's time to take action. And I've been dealing with this.
This is executive session, right?
You know. So.
Exactly.
So.
You're in public session. Yeah. I mean, I really don't want to lose time on this. Demco has cost us a tremendous amount of time on this issue. This is both safety and traffic that we're dealing. We have one of the most dangerous roads in the parish, Highway 930, which we could be under construction within 2 months once utilities are moved. And that is one of the most dangerous roads where school buses are on, same with Henry Road. I don't want to delay because this is about safety. School buses drive down Henry Road and 930 all the time, and I know many of y'all have driven down 930 and Henry and both know how dangerous it is. I'd like to be able to move forward with litigation, and at the same time, we can talk about, I guess bringing in additional counsel on this that maybe specialize in this sort of thing. And I guess that would be my motion, that we still move forward with any legal action that we have to take, and at the same time, work with the DA's office to identify specialized legal counsel that can either assist or take over the litigation if it becomes too time-consuming.
I want legal counsel offers to be presented to us by our next council meeting. I want names of firms that have experience in this area presented to us for a vote at our next council meeting. And if we can get that, and not promises, we're going to vote on it tonight. Because too often, we've had promises made at this dais that go broken. And so I'm not tolerating that any longer. And not you, Aaron, I'm just saying in general.
I understand.
So if we're going to do this, I want specialized counsel that's going to handle this matter for us. Because we don't want the ball dropped again.
We could just vote on that amended motion, and I think we'll be fine that way too.
Okay, do I have I guess I'm not one to ask for a second. Never mind. I'm sorry, John, it's your job.
Please, please ask to be acknowledged before you speak, if you would.
I apologize.
Councilman Lawler.
Yeah, okay, so I'll try and restate as best I can the amended motion, and I'll simplify it this time, that we give our legal counsel authority to move forward with any legal action necessary, and at the same time, by next meeting, identify specialized legal counsel that can assist or take over this matter if we deem it necessary.
I'll second that amendment.
Got a motion from Councilman Lawler as read, as presented, second by Councilman Ogeron. Councilman Mason.
Who is going to vet these law firms and bring them to us? Who are we directing to vet these law firms and bring them to us?
I think the DA was mentioned.
I object to the amended motion.
Councilman Robert.
I object to the amended motion. I'm just offering an objection.
We have an objection. Any other questions, statements? Roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Councilman Thomas, you're voting on the amended motion for legal counsel to move forward with legal action. Councilman Robert,
No.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilman Orgeron,
Yes.
Councilman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Malassaw,
No.
Councilman Lawler,
Yes.
Councilman Wagasback,
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
No.
Councilwoman Casso,
Yes.
Chairman Cagnalotti.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to enter executive session.
I'm sorry.
Just out of curiosity, if it does, if we're going with the DA's office on this right now, and if it's not going as we want it to go, we still would have the option to hire outside legal counsel, correct?
And we're not bound to hire, I'm sorry.
I know,
Eric, can you
raise your hand?
And we're not bound to do anything by next meeting. We are not bound to do anything next meeting either. We're just going to get a list of people that may be able to help us on this, and we can still consider it. And, as I said, it's going to be our decision where we want to go on that.
Okay. Madam Secretary, what was the count?
8-3.
Okay, the motion carries. Moving along, item C, update on zoning lawsuit regarding Shane Anderson property. I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Councilwoman Cazzo. Second by Councilman Mason. Any roll call vote, Madam
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilman Robert,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilman Orgeron,
Yes.
Councilman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Malassaw,
Yes.
Councilman Lawler,
Yes.
Councilman Wagasback,
Yes.
Councilman Mason,
Yes.
Councilwoman Casso,
Yes.
Councilman Cagnalotti,
Yes.
Chairman.
Chair will entertain a motion to motion by Councilman Lawler, reconvene. Oh, need a second.
Do we need a motion for this?
No, I don't think.
Okay, I just make sure.
Motion, I got a motion to reconvene. I need a second. Second by Councilwoman Cason.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second. Any objection? We're adjourned.